So I, by accident, found out that I'm quite good at being personable and relatable. So during these classes, I'm going, oh my God, my legs are hurting. I'm not pretending that I'm like brilliant at it all, and now I do them and my baby crawls in and pulls a plant off the shelf. And I think it's the worst class I've ever taught. And it's got the best reaction because they think, oh, at least it's not just me, that my baby wakes up from his nap and ruins my workout. And I think, especially in the motherhood community, people like to know that it's not all rosy and everyone's kitchens are sparkly clean. I turn my camera around and I show them that I've shoved everything into the back of the room that my background can be clean and tidy. And they love that because they think, okay, she's a real mom, she's a real normal person.
Hi, I'm the self-development coach, Johnny Lawrence, and I'm here today on another episode of Life Talk, the self-development podcast with a wonderful lady, Charlie Barker. How are you, Charlie?
I'm really good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. I'll give you a little introduction. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So first, proud mother and wife, check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Founder of Bumps Burpees, which is a personal training business that provides the space for women to feel supported and empowered through their pregnancy and into motherhood. And then obviously you're a newly best-selling author of the book Bumps and Burpees too. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I mean, that's why this has taken us a long time to actually get the podcast in the diary, because I had to do all the sort of launching of that online, which meant, that a few hours of free time that I've got taken up quite a lot. So yeah, it was an interesting process, but it sounds good to have a best-selling author on an intro now.
Oh, well, just keep. I'm not sure why you haven't got a T-shirt with it on.
I should have a cap, a T-shirt, everything.
That's right. I just what's this? Oh, that's because I'm a best-selling author.
Yes, okay, that's on my list.
No, but congratulations! It's a heck of an achievement, and you do it all. I mean, when I first contacted you through email and you told me I'd really love to, which was so lovely the way you said that as well, and then you reeled off all these things you had to do. I was like, yeah, you do sound quite busy. I'll get back to you, shall I?
It was like writing a book whilst I was pregnant seemed fine because, I didn't have too much else to do. We were in lockdown. It was like, oh, this is great. Then editing the book with a newborn baby, that was a whole different kettle of fish. And I have to say, during it, I was like, I'm never doing this again. This is so hard. And now it's finished. I'm like, oh my God, who wants to let me do a second book? You forget those hard times when you come through them, don't you? Sometimes it's like labor. I think every mother during labor is like, this is it, I'm never having another baby. And then as soon as you hold your baby, you're like, oh, that was nothing. So yeah, it definitely challenged me in many, many ways, but the book's here and I've forgotten about all the hard times.
And you're about to do it again. It sounds like you're about to do it again.
I mean, I would like to. It feels like doing a prenatal book has to come with a postnatal book. So, and I get asked about it all the time. I got asked about it the day I announced the first one. I was like, give me a second. But one day I'm hoping I will do another one. It's just, I've got to find some childcare. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know how I'm going to stay sane. But yeah, one day I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. I remember when my wife gave birth, I just had this overwhelming feeling of pride because I couldn't believe it. And my best friend said to me, "Oh, he didn't have kids at the time." He said, "What was it like?" And I just said, like, if men had to have babies, a man would walk out and say, like, don't do it. And the other guy would go like, okay. And that would be the end.
That would be the end of the world. Yeah,
that would have been it. We would have never moved forward. But I remember coming home. And I was up all night and I was feeling a bit rubbish the night after we got back with our firstborn baby. And the next day, the midwife came out to see us, and I'd been being sick all night, which I'm ashamed to say. I wasn't able to stand up and be the man I wanted to be.
No,
but my wife sort of said to the midwife, "Oh, will you just have a chat with my husband? He's been being sick all night. Do you have any idea what it might be?" And I was just like looking at her like, I'm sure I'm not really good. And the midwife looks at her and says, "Oh, he must be exhausted." And I was like, "Huh, I'm exhausted." I was like, maybe we just.
Oh my gosh! But I feel like men are not allowed to complain at that time, because the day before I had our son Alfie, I was going out of my mind because we were overdue. I went with my husband swimming, And in the pool, I felt great because I felt light, and we were having races up and down the pool. And whilst I was in labour, George was going, I think I've pulled a muscle in my shoulder. And I was like, what? Looking at him like, are you seriously? And he's like, don't worry, I think I'm okay. I was like, yeah, this is not the time and place to be telling me about your sore shoulder, thanks.
Oh, guys.
He was like, don't worry, I could tell he regretted it the second the words came out of his mouth.
Yeah,
like,
if only you could just retract words.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been in that situation too many times to say. I have nothing to say to that other than poor George.
Yeah. The look I gave him was enough.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Look, as I said, I'm so grateful for your time tonight. So we're just going to go. I've sent you a list of questions, and you seem to be happy with those questions. So we'll get started if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. And I have to say, when I go on podcasts and people send me the questions ahead, I have a quick glance over them, but I don't really like to read into them too much because I want it to come naturally. So don't be surprised if I sound a bit like, oh, I wonder what I'm going to answer that question, because I much prefer it this way. I think then you get the real answer.
I never know with people. I send them anyway because some people prefer it, some people don't. But I feel like, if anything, I'm creating a podcast where it's very natural and very fun. We will obviously touch on some very serious topics, but I think this is life, right? This is why it's called Life Talk. Life is full of these, people making jokes at funerals and, to lighten the mood. Yeah. That's life. That's how it is,
Totally. There's funny moments in the darkest of situations, and I think that's just normal.
And I love paradoxes, so there we go. So just to start, tell people that might not know about you yet, about your remarkable journey. I've been looking forward to hearing this from you, so yeah, fire away.
There's a few different avenues we could go down, but I think I have grown up in the sporting world. It's probably the place to start. So I've grown up in gymnastics, which is a very individual sport, even though sometimes you're in teams, but it's an individual sport and it's based largely on perfection. So that sort of has come in and out of play for the whole of my life, whether I've realized it or not. But I think lots of it stems back from that, where you get judged on how perfect the skills are that you're doing. And basically how brave you can be. But if you're brave and you do something hard, it still has to be perfect, otherwise it doesn't count. So that was really interesting. I absolutely loved my gymnastics time. And I did it all the way up, and from when I was about 10 until really recently. So when I was probably 27, 28, and I'm 32 now. So I probably competed up until then. Absolutely loved it. And obviously halfway through that time, I went to university, studied a sports degree, became a personal trainer. And I'm not the kind of person to have a set in stone 5-year plan, 10-year plan. I just have a few things I'm like, that's the avenue I'd like to go down. And then more or less by accident, I became specialized in pre and postnatal training. I think probably I trained a few mums. Mums like to tell their mum friends stuff that they like to do. So I trained their friends and their friends. And then before I knew it, they were telling their friends that they were seeing a specialist. And I overheard someone saying it one day. And in my head, I was like, what? Me? I'm not a specialist. But actually, I thought, I really like the sound of that. So maybe that's what I do want to be. So I started honing in my sort of skill set, and I was doing more and more qualifications and courses and sort of putting myself out there to that niche. And I really like that, because I think in the industry of personal training and sport and things like that, it's a very wide industry, and sadly it's not very difficult to get qualified anymore. You can just sign up online. You never even have to see a coach or anything. You just do your stuff online and then you're qualified. So I think it's very hard to find any success if you just stay with you can be successful, it doesn't matter what that means to you, but I found it's very hard to stand out unless you have a niche. And even in a niche, you need a niche, you know what I mean? So you need to keep specializing until you found something so specific that people come to you specifically for that thing. So I set up a company called Bumps and Burpees, as you said, and that also came out of opportunity that I wasn't expecting. So I had taken some time out of gymnastics, and I wanted to get back into it, but I wasn't feeling very strong. So I approached this guy who I knew was a personal trainer in strength, like a Olympic lifting kind of thing. And I knew I wanted to learn that. And I went to him, but funnily enough, he knew of me through a friend or something, and he wanted me to work for him. So he sneakily said to me, I'll train you for free. And I was thinking, I don't know why he's training me for free, but great, I'll do that. And then within about 6 weeks, I was working for him. He'd said, I've got this idea that I want to do a pre and postnatal sort of department of my gym where people can bring their babies in whilst they train. And I was like, great. And he said, you can have free reign. You just set it up, off you go. And it was great because it sort of happened really slowly. And I love doing things that scare me. I always say yes to things that scare me, but too much, and I back off because I think, oh my God, I think if I put all my eggs in one basket, what happens if it goes wrong?
Is that fear of failure?
Yes, I've weirdly got a need to do things that scare me and a fear of failure. So I'm constantly at loggerheads with myself because I say yes to stuff all the time. And then the night before I'm thinking, oh my God, what happens if this, what happens if that? And it's good because it makes me do the things, but equally, you're right, it is a fear of failure. But time and time again, I'm proved that it doesn't matter.
Love that.
You can only fail if you deem it a failure, because normally you might fail at what you set out to do, but you've got other stuff from it. So basically, I worked in this gym with him. I set up this business and it went so well. It was growing and growing, but eventually it grew too big for him and his business. And it took a while of him not wanting it to go and me staying in those sort of four walls of his gym thinking, okay, maybe this is just it. Maybe I'll just stay here. And I remember going away on a weekend retreat, like a work thing with some other self-employed girls who all were working in the industry doing different things, but they were all self-employed. And I was so inspired by how they lived their life and the things they were talking to me about that I actually got home. And that day I rang him up and I quit. I said, I need to be out of this. I need to do it on my own. And I think you're going to take the business with you because it was your idea in the first place. So that's fine. But I'm going to go and set up my own thing. And he actually said, no, you take it. You've done everything. And I really wasn't expecting him to. But actually, it's good of him to have done that because he's right. I did do it all. And so he would have had to start it again anyway, if that makes sense. So I left with the name that I'd built up and it was something I wasn't prepared to do. And what I'd said to my clients who came with me, I said, oh, give me a few months. I'm going to find a studio. I was engaged at this point. So I was like, let me just get married, focus on that for a second. Because
I'm noticing a pattern here. You quite like a lot going on at once, don't you?
Yeah. I'm quite hard for myself, but equally thrive off it at the same time. I'm somebody that sort of panics if I'm having a quiet time, but also craves that as well. I'm never happy with what I've got, basically. So I said to my clients, okay, let me just see you in your houses. I'll come to your house, I'll bring the equipment. And then once I'm married, I'll find a big studio. We can, start again. And within 2 weeks of me doing this, literally all of the clients said, oh my God, we way prefer you coming to our house because our babies can be in their own environment. I don't have to pack a bag to get out the house on time and all these kind of things. And so I decided, okay, maybe I'll just go that direction. Let's not find a studio. And it was a big, because in my head, I'd never even imagined that would be how the business would be run. But I thought, okay, well, I have less overheads. That's great. Let's just see. And before I knew it, I was getting inquiries for places that I couldn't get to, the other side of London or, outside of London even. And I don't like saying no. And I wanted this business to grow. So I spent my time searching for other trainers like me, qualified up to their eyeballs, but stuck in, little gyms or wherever they were. And slowly built up these people. And I was basically matchmaking clients to trainers. So I was sort of a Tinder for mums to trainers. So they would send me their location, I'd find the trainer, boom, I'd match them up. And to this day, I'm still doing that. And I've got 62 trainers, I think.
Wow.
And they're all based all over the place. I don't employ them. but I recruit them, if that makes sense. So they're all self-employed. They just pay me an introduction fee, and then that client is their personal client. So it just went in a way I wasn't expecting. And obviously then lockdown happened, and it was perfect that I had no overheads of a studio, because that was a disaster for trainers. I felt so awful for people I knew who had studios and gyms, and people wanted to work out from home. So actually my business just grew, and it was through a chance that I'd taken. Let's just see if it works. And actually it just showed me, just try, because the worst that can happen is you've got to go, okay, that avenue didn't work, let's try something else. And for me, luckily, this avenue did work. And the online stuff started picking up, and because trainers couldn't go to people's houses, they could still do Zoom or FaceTime, and it worked really well. And loads of our clients are actually continuing with that, because they're like, oh my god, so much easier with my baby here, that I can just open my laptop, there you are, when it's finished, close the laptop, off I go. So it's sort of opened a whole new side to my business, which is, I've got to learn how to do it, but it's nice, and it's interesting. So that's where we're at in terms of business side of things.
You might be one of the most adaptable people I've ever met. That's
Do you
amazing.
think?
I think what I can hear there is you kind of, I've got this saying where I say you can't control the ocean, but you can navigate it. And I think that's what you've done in that sense. You've sort of, you had this idea in your head, this is what I was going to do, but you listened to all the external voices that sort of helped direct you in the right direction. Because sometimes people can get really pinned down on what they think they want, and they're not listening to what other people are telling them feedback wise. And I think
100%. And I think for me, it was fighting between the vision of what I wanted to be and what my audience and my customers wanted from me. And actually, what good is it being something that nobody wants, right? So I was like, okay, people are asking for workouts at home. I have the capacity to do that. I should do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, when the first lockdown was announced, I was like, no way am I teaching online classes. That is not what I do. I sort of was like, I'm just going to sit here and wait till the lockdown ends, because Boris said it was going to be 3 weeks, didn't he?
he did.
So I just sat and waited. And obviously then it started getting longer and longer, and I was thinking, doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. So I put out there on my Instagram page, who would be interested in a live workout? And hundreds of people said yes. I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to do it. And it was really weird. I was teaching loads of people, but I couldn't see anyone. I was looking at myself on my phone in my kitchen. It was very odd, but the response was amazing. And people said, oh, it's such a lonely thing being pregnant in a lockdown, or having a baby in a lockdown. It feels so nice to be in this community, even though we can't see each other. It's so lovely. So I started building up and up and up. And actually my following tripled over the first two lockdowns. And so it just
on Instagram, is that?
On Instagram, yeah.
Right.
And it just showed me what was needed. So you're right, I had to adapt, but it wasn't always easy. There were certain things that I thought, oh, I don't want to be an online trainer. I like doing the one-on-one and having the feedback from the client telling me, oh, that felt like this, or I'm not sure about this. So it is tricky, but it's something I've learned how to do. And with some of my trainers, because when I got to the end of my pregnancy and I had the baby, I got some of my trainers to take over because I was unable to for the first couple of weeks. And it was interesting because a lot of the trainers found it too hard to do. They weren't able to just talk and talk and talk at a screen with no feedback, because it's a skill that you learn or you don't learn, I don't know. And other trainers were very good at it, and they found out, either way. And so I, by accident, found out that I'm quite good at being personable and relatable. So during these classes, I'm going, oh my God, my legs are hurting. I'm not pretending that I'm like brilliant at it all, and now I do them and my baby crawls in and pulls a plant off the shelf. And I think it's the worst class I've ever taught. And it's got the best reaction, because they think, oh, at least it's not just me, that my baby wakes up from his nap and ruins my workout. And I think, especially in the motherhood community, people like to know that it's not all rosy and everyone's kitchens are sparkly clean. I turn my camera around and I show them that I've shoved everything into the back of the room that my background can be clean and tidy. And they love that, because they think, okay, she's a real mom, she's a real normal person. So I've had to adapt a lot, you're right. And it hasn't always been easy, but I'm glad that I let go of the control a little bit, because
I like the way you said a little bit. You're like, I still got a bit though.
you have to. You
Yeah,
have to
you do.
stay,
You're right.
hold on
Yeah.
to things you know that you like and you can do. But I think if you let go of some control, I think having a baby taught me that you can't be in control of everything.
Oh yes.
You do learn things along the way, and you pick up, tips and tricks, and it sort of got me to where I am now.
Yeah, I think that's a real issue in the fitness industry. My history is about 15 years in the fitness industry as well, and there's a real issue around people representing themselves to be perfect, and they think it's aspirational, but to a lot of people, actually, you just make them feel a bit worse about themselves.
Yeah.
So I was always the kind of trainer that would say, "Hey, look, don't put me on a pedestal. You will see me buying cheap wine and pizza in the supermarket. Simple as
Yes.
that." I still
Oh my
live.
God, exactly. You know what? I think if you get someone on a good day, being
Mm,
aspirational will
yeah,
motivate them and
of
inspire
course.
them. But you might get them on a day where they're feeling rubbish about themselves, and that makes them just feel like, oh, great, everyone else got their life together and I haven't.
Yeah,
And so I'm the same. I say to my clients, oh my God, I'm hungover today, or I ate a huge burger and chips last night. And
yeah. Feeling bloated, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, they like that because they're like, oh, you're normal. I remember one lady said to me once, do you ever eat chips? I was like, what do you mean, do I ever eat chips? Of course I eat chips. And I think that's a good way to be, because any personal trainer or any fitness, professional, they
Mm,
claim to have it all together. They don't.
no,
No one can. Or if they do, their life is very, very boring, and they don't have
yeah.
that side together. They don't live a fun life. So
I mean, children was when my wife and I had kids. That was a real teacher for me when it came to my fitness career, because I remember really really early on. I'd been a personal trainer for 1 or 2 years, and I always seemed to find a niche with women, and I was always one. I think it's because I'm very trustworthy, and I
and you're a
had
good
no.
listener.
Yeah, and I had no agenda. I had no agenda. Like, unfortunately, we all know that in the fitness industry, it's laced with people who have, let's just say, not the best intentions at times. And
Yes.
I was never one of those people. I had integrity. But I remember mums coming in and saying they're really tired, and me going, oh, well, I'll perk you up. And then I remember shortly after that having our first baby, and I'm like, oh, what's the matter? And they're like, colic,
Yeah.
reflux. And I just like totally got it. And I was just like, oh, we'll go a bit easy now, shall we? We'll do this, we'll do that. Because, I had a lady who used to train, and she used to bring a few of her children with her, and she'd have to stop now and again to breastfeed, and she'd have to do all different things. And in the end, we had to have a conversation, because she really wanted to achieve her goal, and I saw no reason why she couldn't. But at the same time, I don't think a mum needs leg DOMs in the middle of the night when she's got to get up and breastfeed. And
Yes.
sometimes that's unavoidable. So I sort of said, let's sort of change our focus a little bit, and just try and stay healthy, try and stay active, try and keep your sort of foot in the door, sort of thing. And that works a bit better. But it's interesting, isn't it, how people put you on a pedestal, and they think that you're this perfect person, and you don't eat chips.
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
do. So
Yeah, and I think every time I post now about, oh, I'm so happy I did a workout this morning or whatever, I have to sort of caveat it by being like, by the way, this was a total rush because I was watching the monitor the whole time, or I didn't get to shower for 5 hours afterwards. And I think, you know, those kind of things are fine. And I have to say to people, it's tough for me as well. Even though I'm a fitness professional, it doesn't mean that I get to
yeah,
train as many hours as I want a week. When you've got a baby, you have to change things, and you don't have to lower your expectations, but don't be so hard on yourself if one day it doesn't go to plan, or one week it doesn't go to plan. And I
yeah,
think that's where my clients stick with me, because I get it, and I'm not going to tell them off for not doing
no,
the homework I set them or whatever.
no.
I'm like, okay, well, how can we make it work for you?
Mm. I always
So
find a
yeah.
really good question is, what did you do instead?
Yeah.
Because whatever they did instead was clearly more important at that point, or more desirable, and that's okay.
Yeah,
There's
and
nothing
very
wrong with it.
rarely a
Yeah.
mum is going to be just sat doing nothing. I'm like,
Oh,
you
I don't think
eat
so.
more calories than most people
Yeah,
by running around in the park after your baby, or
absolutely.
picking up all the toys off the floor, doing billions of lunges. So I think an exercise session doesn't have to be in a sports bra and trainers.
No, it
We're just
doesn't.
moving all the time. So
No.
yeah, my definitely having babies has helped me reassess my empathy, let's say, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. That empathy is so important. Trying to walk a mile. I mean, the job that a mother or a parent in some cases has to do is like nothing else. It never stops. And I mean, my wife and I took children out to a beach. We live in Cornwall, and we took them to a lovely beach nearby, and we took a really beautiful photograph. And I posted it later, but I caveated it with this. I was like, isn't this a lovely photograph? Just after this, the kids were fighting, everybody was miserable, our food got cold. And
Yeah,
it's just like, this
exactly.
is family life. Like, it's not
Yeah,
perfect. And it
yeah,
doesn't matter who you are, you know. And I think one of the things I do admire about you is that sometimes in the fitness industry, and I'm sure they don't do it on purpose, people can sometimes do things that make people not feel so good about themselves, you know, showing pictures of their abs and all that sort of stuff, when people, especially some mums who might just be battling with the baby weight at the beginning and they're seeing people with their abs and
yeah.
stuff, it can sometimes be really sort of demoralizing. But I love the way that you seem to just want to make people feel better, and I love that
That's,
about you.
I want to make people feel like they're not the only one,
Yeah.
because I also like to show people that you can have aesthetic goals.
Hmm.
There's a lot of they're like message on Instagram at the moment is a lot of like embrace your mum bod, you know,
Hmm.
it's your new body. But I'd like to say to women that, you know, it's okay if you want to get back into your old jeans. That's
Of course.
completely allowed, as long as you don't do it unhealthily and obsess over it.
Yeah.
You can get there. So if you want abs, you can have abs, of course you can, but you have to understand that you can't train 2 hours a day 7 days a week anymore,
Hmm.
because you've got other things going on, and that's okay. So it might just take a bit longer. But yeah, I constantly having people message me saying it's so nice to hear that I'm not the only one, X, Y, and Z. And I
Yeah.
think that's
That
important.
community you're creating.
Yeah,
Yeah, of community of support, because being a mum's hard enough without any more external pressures. I mean, I train a lot of mums, and one of the things that I see more often than not is I see it at both ends of the scale. I see the new mums, all the ones all the way to the mums who are just saying goodbye to their kids to university
yeah,
and all that sort of stuff. So I've seen the whole spectrum, and you know, I think any decent trainer not only educates their clients but learns from them too. And
totally. Oh my
I've
god.
learned a lot from my clients
Yeah,
in the past, an awful lot. As a matter of fact, I still ring some of them and go, okay, is this normal?
yeah. It's no. I think you've got to be open
Yeah.
to knowing that you're never done. You never learn everything. So
Mm.
anyone who thinks that is wrong, because there's always something to learn, whether it's in your
Oh,
profession or just in life. I think always be open to knowing you're not always right.
yeah, and you will change your mind. What you believe in at 20 is most likely not going to be what you believe at 30. I
Yeah,
certainly can say that.
yeah, and be okay with changing your mind and
Yeah,
admitting that actually what you did think isn't quite what you think now. And I
yeah.
think some people
Perspective.
get really stuck and they get themselves in a hole because they believe so hard
Mm.
that one thing is right, and then they can't quite pull themselves out of the hole. But certainly becoming a mum has taught me to never, I don't know, never judge another parent until you have been through that scenario. And actually, even then, you've never been through exactly the same scenario
No,
as them. I
no.
think everybody's been through looking at a toddler having a meltdown somewhere, going, oh god, if that, I would never let my toddler do that. And then
Oh
you have
yeah.
a baby and you think, oh my god, it's not their fault, the poor
No.
mom, the poor dad, whatever.
Yeah, my wife is like one of the kindest people in the world, and I never forget us being on a really long flight once, and this woman at the back of the plane had a crying baby, and there was this very unhelpful chap who kept telling the lady, "Can you shut your baby up, please?" And I was
Oh,
like, "Yeah," because it. So my wife sort of scowled at him, went to the back, and this woman, this was a long flight. I think it was Australia, in fact, so it was
oh,
very long flight, and my wife went back to her and said, "Can I help? Can I hold your baby while you go to Lulu or grab a cup of tea?" And she sat
oh.
with the baby, and it was one of those annoying moments for the mum, I'm sure, when the baby just settled. She's just like, but she did. She got to go off, and you know, you could just see in that woman's eyes, like, thank you so much, the sort of gratitude for that one small thing. And it's amazing to me, like in that moment, you have two choices: you can either help or be part of the problem, you know.
Totally.
And
And it's never the mum or the dad wanting their baby to cry.
no, you don't get on a plane going, right, start crying and do not stop till
Yeah,
we land.
exactly. It's actually, you've probably been dreading the flight for weeks
Yeah,
and
the
you're
anxiety. Yeah.
stressed. Yeah. So I think how lovely of that of your wife to do that.
No, she's like that. She's very lovely. I'm
Oh.
very lucky. um, what drew you to helping others, do you think?
I think loads of things probably added up, but I am the eldest of four, and my youngest brother is 16 years younger than me. So I think when he was born, I was very involved in the bringing up of him, really. I would do a lot. I would take him to nursery. My mum said that she would wake up in the night hearing him crying. She would come into his room and I'd already be in there.
Oh,
No, mum, I've got his nappy. So I think growing up, just helping was just the norm. Just spotting a situation where you could do something, I think became natural to me. And I've always been somebody that reads a room, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing, because you can't always help. You know, my parents are actually divorced now, and before they divorced, when the marriage was sort of, you know, they hadn't told any of us, but I was like, right, I'm sensing something here. And, you know, I was like, Mom, Dad said something to you, you didn't hear him, you know, trying to patch things up. And it wasn't up to me to do that. And I think sometimes it's good because you can help, and other times it's not your choice to help. I'm definitely the peacemaker within my family and maybe some of my friends, but I overthink things. So if I send a message trying to make something better and they read it and they don't reply straight away, it's probably because they're busy or they're doing something. But I then go, but don't worry, if that's not what I send back a message straight away. And so I think it's a good thing and a bad thing.
Gift and a curse, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, I want to help people and I want to make people feel better, because sometimes it's not up to me. And I can actually make the situation worse by trying to go, look on the bright side of life, and actually they just don't want me involved, or they want to be in a bad mood for the day and it's nothing to do with me. I learned a lot about it there's a whole nother side to where I got to today when you asked that question, where we've had 4 miscarriages before we had our son Alfie, all in 1 year, which was obviously a tough year. And I learned really quickly how unhelpful it was at the time for people to tell me the silver linings and the positive side of things, because when you're in something so deep and dark, you don't want to be told, yeah, but look at it this way. You're just dealing with the cards that are in front of you.
It can devalue your experience, can't it?
I think so, yeah. And I think, for me, saying, oh, I miscarried, people would say, well, at least you can get pregnant and at least it was early. And I think being told at least something, like you said, it devalues your experience and it makes you feel guilty for feeling sad or feeling angry or whatever you're feeling. It's like being told when you've lost a leg, well, at least you've got another leg. You're like, I wanted 2. I want both legs. Am I allowed? And so for me, I was saying, but I wanted that baby. I don't want another one. And of course, I knew I was lucky that I could get pregnant. And so
it wasn't the time to say that.
Yeah, my rational brain knew that. And of course, I was so happy that I could get pregnant. But I wanted that pregnancy that I just had, that I lost. So it's grieving. It's taught me that sometimes you just need to revel in the sadness with that person and sit there with them rather than trying to bring them out, because it might not be the right time to cheer them up. Maybe you just need to sit there, because one lady said to me when I told her what happened, she just said, oh, that is so shit. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what a very real comment to make. But actually I was like, yes, it is. It's brilliant. And I didn't have to navigate her emotions, because other people would get upset and then I'd be looking after them saying, oh, don't worry. And actually that's not up to me. And so it's really taught me when is the right time to try and make a situation better. And even if, can I make it better? Because sometimes I can't. And to say things like, I can't make things better, but I'm here for you, whatever you need, can sometimes be better than trying to pick their mood up.
I think it's so important to hold that space for people when they're feeling vulnerable, because they've just given you something that's really difficult, which is their vulnerability. And when somebody says, oh, cheer up, it'll be okay, that's very devalidating, and it can make people feel rubbish, as you say. And I think one of the things there is that I think most often, exactly as you say, they don't like the way you're making them feel. They're like, oh, I don't like hearing these words, this makes me feel sad, stop it. And
completely. So and I think for me, I'd had a few clients that have gone through miscarriages before, and I probably said all those things to them because nobody says them wanting to upset you. They think they're helping, and I certainly did. But it really has changed the way that I react to all situations. My mum at the moment, my mother-in-law, and my mum had also a few years ago gone through menopause, and I've never been through that, so I can't actually know what they're feeling. But I think at the beginning I was saying, oh, well, just go on a walk, you'll feel better, but actually saying, oh, poor you, that sounds awful.
Mm.
What do you think we should do? Should I come over? That kind of thing makes them feel like you're actually there for them, rather than just trying to palm them off and make your day better because they're cheered up.
Yeah.
And they're trying to be cheered up for you.
Yeah.
So I think it doesn't matter what situation it is, but if you sit for a second, actually listen to what they're saying, rather than already trying to think of a response. Actually listen and maybe just agree with them. Yes, it is shit. How awful.
Yeah.
And I said to my mother-in-law, oh, women have a really tough time. You think you've done it all when you've had your babies, but then another thing comes on, and it really is shit. And actually, what I've done with her to help her is more find resources that she can read and feel like this is normal. And
community again, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. And I spoke to my mum and said, do you want to talk to her and tell her what you went through? Because I don't know how it actually feels. And even though they haven't spoken about it, knowing that they can and that she's there if she needs her is really nice. So in a way, my job is done, because I have gone, I can't help you really unless you want me to distract you and take you for a nice day out. But if you do want someone to help you, here's what I found. And that's something it's taken me a while to learn. It's not always my place to fix the problem, but I can do a bit, and then I have to be okay with them being sad, because they are that at the moment, and they're going to be fine. So I think over my whole life, from when I was young, it sort of lent myself to being a helper, by relating to them, by saying, I know what you feel like because of this. This is what I did. Maybe that will help. And also letting them know that it's okay how they're feeling and that it will get better. But right now, just be kind to yourself. Just let your feelings come and go, because if you block them out now, they're just going to come out later. So just sit with them, as hard as it might be, and it will be okay in the end, basically. And I think just someone being there. So I don't know exactly what has contributed to it, but I think all those things together must have.
Have you ever had any, because I resonate a lot with what you're saying. I'm a very empathic person who loves helping people, and in my life I found that to be sometimes quite dangerous for myself. Have you experienced that?
I think in a way, I
knowing when to sort of stop,
yes, and I take on people's emotions a lot. So I would often come home and be exhausted and feeling sad. And I remembered it's because, oh yeah, I was talking about baby loss or fertility issues for a whole hour with someone. And I worked with someone who dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression and things, and I would really take that on. So I think, yes, you have to be very good at putting it in a box and dealing with it some way, because if you let it sit with you for too long, you can almost forget that it's not your emotions, they're not yours.
That's such great advice.
You're empathizing so deeply with someone that you can feel it. So this Mother's Day just gone was great for me because it was my first Mother's Day, but I felt so strongly the feelings that I'd felt the previous years when other people were posting online about how they wish they were a mother, and I felt sad for the whole day, even though it was such a great day for me, really. And I was looking at my son going, I'm a mum, this is great, but I can't shake that feeling, because I remember it so strongly. And when other people post about it, I think, poor them, I don't want to celebrate my day because they're having such a tough time. So I think it's something that never leaves you. If you're that kind of person, you're always going to have to be very careful about taking on other people's emotions.
And reading the room all the time in every environment. You're probably taking on multiple vibes all the time. It can be very intense. What do you do to manage that?
Personal trainers are like therapists that are not qualified, right? My sister is a therapist and she's very qualified, and she's like, I can't believe some of the things these women tell you. I'm like, I know. And often I'll call her and be like, what should I say? What do I do? But the things I do to deal with that, I've learned to talk about it more. So my husband is he used to be very sort of brash about it, like, oh, don't get so upset about that. And then I'd go, oh yeah, okay, because I felt stupid. And now I say to him, yeah, but I am upset about it. So I need to just talk it through with you. And he's very good now and understanding that I need to talk it through. I don't really even need him to tell me anything. I just need him to listen. So I got it off my chest. And often saying it out loud is like, okay, it's not in my head anymore. It's out in the open. I've always written a diary.
Have you? Great.
It's less in depth. I've got a baby.
I was gonna say.
I have always written one since I was in year 9. So I think that must be 14 years old. I've written one every single day.
Have you kept them?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So I have them. They're 5-year diaries. So they each page is a date, and you have about 5 lines to write. So tonight, when I write it, I'll be able to see this day, last year, the year before, and so excuse me. It's very interesting because I can see the types of things that were very important to me at that time.
Yeah.
And I look like in year 9, I was going, oh my God, Mrs. Smith gave me this extra homework and I hate her. I can't believe it. Or I had a fight with my friend. And then I laugh so much because 5 years down the line, I read back and I think, oh my God, was that my only problem I had?
Are there any trends? Like things that you notice? Like same time of the year, you have similar problems or thoughts?
It's not so much the same time of the year, but it shows me that I'm an overthinker for sure. Because I'll mull over things and I think, should I have sent that? Should I have said this? I get worried about what if, and I think I wish I'd said that and I wish I'd said this, which is always very easy to say in hindsight. But it's funny to see because my first 5-year diary was school. My second one was my gap year and university, and my first proper boyfriend, all those kind of things, which at the time was like, oh my God, my life is so important. Then my third 5-year diary was getting my qualifications, starting my career, and now it was miscarriages, it was motherhood, it was moving out of London, and it's so interesting to see all that. But I think writing it out has always been quite therapeutic for me.
Could be one of your books in the future, I'm sure.
I don't want to read about my fights with my friends at school, but they are interesting for me.
What was one of the, you spoke about your miscarriages, and thank you for sharing that. That's really nice of you to do that, because I'm sure that will, again, sort of other people will take a lot from that.
I shared it initially to help me because I felt very alone, and the response I got initially was amazing. Hundreds and hundreds of women and some men actually saying thank you for making them feel less alone. And I think even though it's common, it doesn't feel like it. And everywhere around you see women being pregnant and just by accident, sleeping with a guy once and then they found out they're pregnant, and you just think, why am I the only one that's struggling? So it was a two-way thing. I was helping other women and men, and it was helping me too. So I am always quite open about it now, because I think it's important to let people know that even though someone might announce pregnancy on Instagram and it looks all really happy, you never know what's gone on behind that.
No, you don't. What's one of the hardest, the most challenging things that you've been through, do you think?
Aside from the miscarriage?
No, what if it's that, then
with it? I think for me and my husband, luckily, it kind of brought us together. But I can see really how fertility issues and baby loss can break people up, because it's so intense. It's not often in life that both of you will be grieving something at the same time. Often one of you is going through something so the other person can pick you up, and vice versa. And I found it very hard to help him being so low when I was so low, and I know he felt that too. And I think that was something I'd never thought about. And I think you just fall into your ways and how you deal with things. So at the beginning, I was very outwardly emotional. I was crying a lot. I was very down. I took a bit of a break from work because work was quite tough because of the industry.
Of course.
And my husband George went back to work, and he was like, he was fine. And I was thinking, oh my God, am I being too emotional? Is he all right? Why does he not care? But actually what then happened, once I'd sort of felt a bit better and was feeling stronger, he then had his sort of meltdown, if you like. And we were at a wedding, and I found him in floods of tears. And actually he was just making sure I was okay before he let his guard down. And that's how it went each time. And once we knew that's how things went, it was like, okay, cool, we can do this. We know how to work. And that was something that I think when you get married and you say, for better or worse, that was for worse, because it was a really low time. And it was sort of we knew we were going to get there in the end, but it felt so far away at the
Sorry, it's
time.
giving me goosebumps.
Well, it even gives me goosebumps, really.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, once you get your baby, it won't feel like it was so hard. And I was in the middle of it at the time thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. But they were right. It's like your brain sort of dulls down the emotion when you remember it. And I think maybe because I've spoken about it so much, the emotion gets further away. But because I wrote it all down very soon after it happened. And I just remember those raw emotions and just feeling like nothing else mattered. And, you know, loads of good things were going on in my life, but I didn't care. And it was like, you want that one thing. But it was the first time in my life that I couldn't just get it. You know, like at the moment where we are in the world, you could just order things for next day delivery. You can just change a career when you want to. And this thing I wanted so badly, I just couldn't get. And it was a real lesson for both of us for patience. We felt like we were kids on Christmas Day being told to eat our breakfast and get dressed and brush our teeth before we open our presents, but they kept giving us more chores to do and we were doing everything, but they wouldn't give us the presents. It felt like that. And we had to really dig deep in our relationship, I think, to come through that. And I think it's taught us a lot. We don't talk about it really as, you know, gosh, look what we've come through, but occasionally things happen that make us realize, oh, you know what, thank God we are a strong team, because you need that.
You have such a beautiful way of articulating things. It's really lovely to hear. I mean, I resonate a lot again with you saying it helps, and I can't say if it makes it easier, but it does help to talk about it, because I had quite significant childhood trauma, and I've just recently started speaking about it on podcasts and different things, and I felt it's helped, more so because people message me and say, I've never heard it articulated like that. I really, you know, I feel supported. I feel like someone else out there understands, you know.
Yeah. And
And
even if you help one person, you think, great,
yeah, yeah,
done.
yeah. I mean, do you have any, you may not do, but do you have any sort of, not advice, but any perspective that you can pass to someone who might be going through that sort of time at the moment?
I mean, I say, like you said, talking really helps, but
Mm.
it doesn't mean that you have to talk on a public forum,
No,
or
of course.
you know, if you just want to tell your best friend or tell someone. Sometimes it's helpful to tell someone you don't really know, so like a therapist
Mm.
or your personal trainer, you know, like just tell somebody so you can actually voice it.
Mm.
I think that's really helpful, because stuff that's only in your head can get worse and worse and worse and worse, because you've got nobody giving you any feedback on what you're saying. And I think that, to me, is advice I'd give to people. Talk about it or write it down. Even if
Mm.
you write it down and then throw away that piece of paper or burn it or whatever you want to do, I think it really does help, because you're getting it out of your head. And the other thing I would say is that all of your emotions are valid. So if you feel, I've had a
Love that.
client who
Love
I had a client who had a miscarriage, and she was very matter of fact about it. She, in fact, she didn't seem upset. She seemed really angry, and that's fine. I said to her, do you know what? Sometimes it's easier to be angry than upset, because that's how you deal with that situation. And she talked about it like it was a science project or something. You know, it didn't feel very emotional the way she was speaking about it.
Very detached.
Really detached, but that was how she wanted to deal with it, and that is totally fine. I each one was different for me. At the beginning, the first one, I thought, right, let's crack on with another one. You know, it's very common. The second one, I was really upset, you know, and each one was very different. But I think I learned very quickly that it's okay, however you want to deal with it. If you want to talk about it, you should. If you don't, then great. If you want to cry, then cry. And if you want to, you know, be cross, then you do that. And I think the second we understand that it doesn't matter, there's no right or wrong about dealing with a situation, then the pressure's off a little bit, because you don't feel like you have to say a certain thing or you have to do a certain thing. And when people message me, which they often do, quite raw messages saying, I'm having a miscarriage right now. And at the
Wow.
beginning, I would go, oh my God, I don't know what to say to that. You need to go to a doctor. And I can't give medical advice, of course I can't. But what I can say to them and reassure them is, this is the worst thing, and I'm so sorry. You will be okay. But right now, you need to be really patient with yourself. let those tears come if they come, and stay near people who really love you, and you just ride it out day by day. And obviously I tell them to go to the doctor and things like this, but
Yeah.
I think if you let them know that this tunnel does end, this dark tunnel does end, but it's not going to end today, and it probably won't end tomorrow, I think they feel comfort in that. Okay, I'm just going to sit here and feel rubbish because it's all right and I'm allowed to, rather than people ask me, how do you stay so positive? I'm like, I am not positive. I'm a very good person at seeing the positives in a situation, but only when it's right. The
When you're
time
ready.
right. Yeah, when I'm ready. And I think it's very important for people to realize. I'm very honest on my social media accounts, Instagram, but I am not the kind of person to put pictures up of me crying or, you know, having a bad day. But what I will do is write about it. So it's important for people to read the captions under the pretty pictures, because when I'm in that position and I'm crying and I'm having a rubbish day, I tend not to take selfies. That's just me.
Yeah.
Other people might do, but I think it's important just to remember that no matter what you see of someone so-called dealing with a situation better than you, there's just no such thing. There's no such thing as anyone doing it better.
I love a point that you made up about seeking external perspective, because I think sometimes when you're in them dark places, you know, you do stay quiet and you become your own sort of advice giver. And I think when you're in that dark place, possibly your own advice isn't the best, because I found personally that it, over long-term sort of periods, it can cause a lot of shame, because you start to sort of give yourself advice, and then before you know it, you're telling yourself to shut up and it's not so bad and this person's got it worse and all that sort of stuff.
And how dare I feel like this? And you know, I get a lot of messages from new mums who maybe have had baby loss, or maybe they haven't, but they're feeling guilty because they're finding it hard.
That guilt.
And I'm like, oh my God, it is hard. You're finding it hard because it is hard. And it doesn't for 1 second mean you're not grateful for having your baby or the situation you're in. But you are allowed to say that you're exhausted, or you're feeling sick, or your baby never sleeps and you're frustrated, because you are. It doesn't mean you can't have two sets of emotions at the same time. You can also never want to give the baby back, but you could make the baby sleep a bit more if you tried, you know, like you're right. You put a lot of shame on yourself because you've got no one telling you that you're being a bit harsh on yourself.
And that shame is self-perpetuating, because the shame will eventually be the thing that keeps you quiet, which is a bit of a nightmare.
People are going to judge me if I let them know this. And 99.999% of times people are going to go, oh, thank God you said that, because I'm feeling like that too.
Absolutely. I mean, my wife and I had a really rough time with our firstborn. He didn't sleep, and he had a succession of issues, and we later find out that he's neurodiverse. So it explains quite a lot, really. And we still have challenging days. We had a challenging day this week. And what we've learned really when it comes to people in general, let alone our own children, is just not to have them expectations and assumptions. I think anytime you have them expectations and assumptions and they don't get met, you kind of set yourself up in a way. You know, it's not easy. It's not easy to do that, but it does help to sometimes stand in that moment and say, is this an expectation of mine? Was I fair to make this expectation? Was I fair to make this assumption? Because my son with neurodiversity, you know, you can ask him 100 times, do you want to go to the park? And he'll say no, but the 101 time he'll just say yeah. And there'll be no rhyme or reason why. He'll just
exactly.
You know, so it's quite a thing.
I think in all aspects of life, we just need to be a bit kinder to ourselves and just take the pressure off.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think things like Instagram sometimes can make that worse. And then there are accounts like yours that I think are there to comfort and soothe and empathize with people, which is wonderful. What do you think some of the greatest lessons that you've learned in your life are that you'd love to pass along? Sorry, you did mention you had a bit of a cold, didn't you?
Yeah, I've caught it from my son. Sorry, will you repeat that question one more time?
What do you think one of the greatest lessons that you've learned in your life is?
Oh gosh.
Heavy question.
I think the biggest lesson is that things can change. Oh, I've got something in my throat. Things can change at the drop of a hat. Your situation can change. The weather can change. Everything can change. Oh.
Bless you.
I need to cut this out. I'm so sorry. Everything can change. So whether it's a good situation or a bad situation, don't take it for granted, because it can change tomorrow. And I think I don't know, we're very quick to wish things away. You know, more recently I'm saying, oh, things will be easier when he's 8 months old, when he's a year old, when he's 2 years old. But then you miss what they were doing.
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize. It's okay. You did mention you had a bit of a cough. I think it's authentic.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I just think that things can change so quickly. So if you're having a bad day, it's good to remember that, because it means tomorrow might be a better day. If you're having a good day, enjoy it, because tomorrow might not be a really good day. And that's something that you can take that through your whole life, I think.
I think something I've learned recently is how to sit with my emotions. You know, I used to have coping mechanisms that didn't serve me very well in the long term, to handle sort of getting away from my emotions, directly related to my childhood trauma. And I think what you're saying there is a beautiful thing, to just sometimes just allow you. And I think that's been a running theme through this whole conversation, is I love how you're not saying it's nice, and
No.
you're not saying that you enjoyed it or you'd love to go back and do it, but you did honor it. You did sit there in them really difficult times and be angry, be upset, be scared, and I think, and be anxious, and acknowledge that anxiety, and the fact that you've kept a diary of it as well. I mean, there can be no better teacher for someone than what they did before.
Very true.
You know, so I think that's wonderful. If you could go back in time and give advice to yourself, what would it be, and at what age?
Ooh. I think I would go back to my gymnastics self, my young self, and be a bit braver in, basically, I would always try these very exciting skills in training. I put myself out of my comfort zone. But when it came to competing, I would want to be perfect. So I wouldn't show the judges these new things I've been working on. And I think I would tell her that they would be impressed that you're trying and seeing what you've been working on. I think I'd like to take that more into my life, putting things out there that aren't quite perfect, but this is what you've been prepping for. This is what you're passionate about. This is what you've been working on. You know, something I've wanted to do for 2 years, I think now, is do a podcast of my own. And last week even, I went on a walk and I listened to someone else's podcast. And I came back and I was like, I need to do my own podcast.
You totally need to do your own podcast.
Yeah. And I wanted it to be completely perfect. And actually, I think what I've got to do is just start.
I read a really wonderful quote today. I might butcher it, but if you're not ashamed of your first product, then you did it too late.
So good. I like that.
Yeah, and I like that, because you got me doing it now.
Sorry.
No, because I think, you know, I've only been doing this since December, and I'm sure if I listen to my December episodes, there will be things I'll cringe at, you know. And there's no way to learn this until you do it. And the episodes I'm doing today, this one right now, I'm sure in a year's time I'll be like, oh, I should have asked this question, I should have done that, I should have done this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if I look back into my first few clients I ever trained, I just think, oh god.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Notepad out.
Yeah.
But you're right. So I think I would tell my younger sort of teenage self, just show them what you're passionate about, show them what you're working on, because they'll be impressed with something. They're not going to think, oh my god, how dare she show me that skill with not pointed toes. I might be marked down a bit. There'll be someone to criticize you somewhere, but there'll be loads of people who think, wow, that's really cool what she's doing. So I'm even now trying to take that advice with my business, by being like, I'm very comfortable what I'm doing right now. I feel very confident in what I'm doing right now, but I know I've got more to give.
Oh yeah.
But I just have to try.
I mean, is your son walking yet?
Almost. Like any day now he'll be walking.
See, that process is a massive teacher. It was for me anyway, because I watched my son get up and fall down, get up and fall down, get up and fall down, and he didn't care. He was loving it. He was like, I'm going to get this. And you could just see that determination in his face. And the first time he did it, I even get goosebumps thinking about it now. The joy in the room on his face, that he's walking and his arms are like that, and you just know he's going to run into that table because he hasn't worked out to stop yet.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? That's so right. They don't care how many times they fall, because they're like, one day I'll get, and I see him watching older kids thinking, right, I want to do that.
which is what we're doing, right? We're watching other people. We want to
Yeah.
try. And it's only, I was listening to a podcast, I think it was Fern Cotton the other day, and she was saying that her child still has massive tantrums in the middle of the street. And she's like, I hate it, but I also really respect it, because when did we lose that ability to go, I don't care what anybody else says. I'm not happy and I want everyone to know.
Like an adult, we're like, oh, don't worry, thank you
Yeah.
anyway. And then we go
Like
home.
passive aggressive, like, no, I'm
No, at
fine.
home. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I agree. So he teaches me a lot.
Yeah, they do. They are the most wonderful teachers. I turned 41 this year, and I was still trying to train like a 25-year-old, even though I know better. I don't know what it is about trainers. They don't think the rules apply
Oh
to them
yeah,
somewhere.
of course.
And I sat down on the sofa and I'd left my phone on the table and I was about to send a text message. So I did this big groan because my legs were hurting, and I got up and I walked over to the phone. And I sat down again back on the sofa, and my son says to me, Dad, when you do exercise, you do it to feel great, don't you, Dad? And I said, yeah. He said, then why can you never walk? And I was like, good question.
Good question.
And I had to reevaluate. Like, I had to say, okay, I'm 41 now. I can still train, but I might have to back off on this and I might have to change that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a great lesson. Thank you, son.
I'm worried about when my son Alfie starts talking, because I just know what's going to come
Oh, they
out.
don't stop. They don't stop after that.
I know.
And there will come a time that you'll realize that, right now you and your husband will be able to sit in the front seat of the car and you'll have conversations and you know that it's fine. And then one day you'll be sat there and they'll just repeat what you said and you'll be like, oh no, don't say that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, his first word was duck, and that was very close to another word. So
yes,
I was like,
yes,
okay,
yes.
Right. We've got to be a bit careful now. So
we had a very funny experience in the car once, my wife and I, and we were driving, and my wife had just been into a shop and she had the worst service. The guy was very rude, and she come out and she was very irate about it. And she said, oh, the guy was such a TWAT. And I sort of looked at her because she did it because the kids were in the back.
Yeah.
And my son, who was learning phonics at the time, turns out TWAT is a very phonicky word. And he asked us, he says, Mummy, what's a twat? And we were like, it was really funny, really cringy, really sort of, oh no, we're terrible parents sort of moment.
I not laugh, otherwise he'll say it again.
Yeah, exactly. Just one more question before we finish up. Do you have anything you'd like to share with people that you feel might help them move forward with their self-development?
I mean, it's probably very cliche, but I think believe in yourself, because if you don't believe what you've got to offer is good, then you're going to have a hard time making other people believe that it's good. So back yourself, because there's room for everybody in this world, and you're important, and what you have to offer is going to help people. And even if it helps one person, like I said before, then you're doing an amazing thing. And you never know, with something that you put out there, you might get 3 people say that it was awful, but one person say it was good. Great, you've helped that one person. So back yourself. And I have to tell myself that all the time as well. But I think once you learn how to be confident in yourself, your personality, what you do with a job, like everything, life starts to get a little bit more enjoyable. I feel like you're not constantly criticizing yourself, and that's really nice.
Yeah, I love that advice. That's really great advice. And that's the irony, in one way or another, we're both in the self-development industry. And I think that people have to understand that, yes, we've got lots of perspectives and lots of wisdom to pass on, but oh yes, we are still suffering with the same stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We have imposter syndrome, we have self-doubt, we have anxiety. We may have given speeches in the past, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to be anxious next time and all that sort of thing.
Totally. So imposter syndrome is actually something that creeps up a lot with me. And I sometimes log on to these live workouts thinking, do people actually want to do my workouts? And I've met people in real life now who've gone, I've done your workouts through the whole of lockdown. And I'm thinking, oh my God, real people, not just numbers on the screen. And it's so nice to see that. So I think it's something that just keep going. If you think what you're doing is great, don't let anybody stop you. Just go, go, go.
That's wonderful advice. It really is. Great advice. What's next for you?
Well, maybe I'll write another book. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you've got to now.
Now, haven't I? I would like to write another book one day. I think I would love to write it. Yes, I want to do a workout book, but I think more and more as I've become a mum, I have seen the need for this community vibe and the need for letting mums know that they're not on their own, And so that's what I want my podcast to be about, to let parents really know that it's okay. Now, my Alfie doesn't eat any vegetables. He's so fussy. But I thought I was the only one whose child didn't devour their broccoli puree, because on Instagram, that's all you see. Yeah, all these mums were telling me they're in the same boat. So I think I want to start working on the community side of things a little bit more. So yes, keep my focus on the fitness, definitely. That's where my passion is and I love it. But I also want to focus on the motherhood, parenthood community, and building up that somehow. Online, probably. I'd love to do some real life events when we can. So yeah, I think that's my general goal. Because I've got my son, he's at nursery 1 day a week now, which is amazing, but I've had to let myself realize that I can't get as much done as my head would like to get done right now. So it's
a learning curve.
Yeah, I'm just putting a few ideas on the table, thinking, okay, by the end of the year I'd love to have done one event, whether it's online or in real life, and then that seems really doable to me. I'm actually speaking this week to a virtual assistant, which is something that it's taken me a long time to get to this, because I think when it's your business, delegating out is really quite hard.
So difficult.
But that for me is a step to be like, if I can give someone else this job, I'm going to have more time for this job. So that's a self-development thing for me, to spread my wings a little bit, to grow. So that's what is next for me, hopefully building a bit more of a community platform.
That's amazing. So a nice community platform, a podcast, and a book. I will hold you to that. We'll speak again.
If I can do one, I'll be very happy.
That sounds like goals to me. That's brilliant. Tell people where they can find you, and if there's any projects you want to direct them towards.
So there are 2 Instagram accounts that I'm very, very heavily on. So one of them is at Bumps and Burpees, which is all the fitness stuff. So that's where all the classes are. I post workouts all the time, and share products for, weights, home workouts, that kind of thing. It's all fitnessy things. Then my personal one, which is my maiden name, because somebody has stolen my married name account name, but it's at Charlie Launder, and that's where I post more about what I'm doing in motherhood. So often there's fitness on there, but there's a lot of me taking my son swimming, feeding him, what clothes he's wearing, that kind of thing. So it depends what you're looking for as to which one you want to follow, or maybe you want a bit of both. And then if you're looking for personal training or ebooks or the book, I've got a website, www.bumpsandburpees.com. It's all on there. So you can inquire for personal training and I will match you up with somebody near to you. And that is where you can find me. My book is everywhere you can imagine it is. Amazon, bookshops, those kind of things. And yeah, that's it.
Just one last question. What does it feel like to see your book on Amazon and on bookshelves? Is it cool?
Oh, do you know what? It feels so nice. And I went to see a friend the other day who has a baby, and it was on her bookshelf. Like,
oh wow,
oh,
that's awesome. That's really
so nice. And you know what? Somebody sent me a message saying they found it in a library in Singapore.
Wow.
That is so cool to me, because it's helping people in different areas of the world. And it's just, for so long it was something in my head, and now it's on paper and it's in people's homes, and it's amazing. It doesn't quite feel real, really. No.
That's the same. That's the sort of thing, I haven't written a book yet. I'd like to one day, but with a podcast, you never know who's listening. Just like a book, you never know who's reading. You don't know who you've helped. All the people you've seen face to face and online and all that, but there are people out there reading your book, and they're getting so much help from it. And I think that must just feel amazing. You should be really proud of yourself.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I am actually. It's the first time in my life I let myself say out loud, I'm really proud of what I've done, because I think British people are very bad at that, aren't they?
Oh yeah. But you've done well too.
Yeah, exactly. Or you just say, oh well, no, it was easy. It didn't long. Actually, it was bloody hard, and I'm very proud of myself. So, thank you. Yeah, it is good to see it out there, and hopefully one day I'll have another one.
Well, congratulations on the book. Congratulations on all your success. And I wish you all the best for the future. So
thank you so much. It's been so nice to chat.
It's been lovely to chat. And I'm really grateful for your time. And hopefully we'll get to do this when the podcast comes out and the book comes out and the community comes out.
Okay. I shouldn't have said it all. Yeah.
I'm going to hold you to it. I'm just going to hustle you now all the time. When's it coming out? When's it coming out?
Yeah. Okay. I'll be back with all my new news.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Charlie.